Okay, hi, I'm Leonie from Churchill Education, one of Australia's leading providers of recognition of prior learning. And I have the great pleasure of speaking to Nikki Patterson, who is the founder of Accomplished Education. So, Nikki, we've been working with Nikki for a number of years, and we refer many of our clients to Nikki for resume preparation, interview skills coaching, and all sorts of other career coaching services. So I reached out to Nikki and said, Nikki, what advice do you have for our people coming into 2026? And often when a new year starts, it's, we've all got that, oh, is it time for a new career, or is it a time for a step up in our career energy? And so Nikki quite rightly came up with the topic of talking about career change. So in this video, Nikki's going to cover a heap of excellent points, main points being figuring out what you want in your next career change, positioning yourself for that move, and preparing now so that future you, i.e. in between Christmas and New Year, isn't scrambling. So I love that, Nikki. So would you like to start by introducing yourself and talking a little bit about what you do at Accomplished Education?
Absolutely. Well, first up, thanks for having me, Leonie. I really appreciate the opportunity. So Accomplished Education is a career transition coaching business. So my background is in first responding, and I transitioned about 5 years ago into career transition coaching because I saw the need for helping people who want to do a big career change articulate and align their transferable skills to an entirely new industry. So what that looks like is resume writing or training. So helping people that want to learn how to write their own resume, helping them in that space as well, or a done for you resume writing service, interview coaching, as well as offering career transition coaching. So if you're not quite sure what service what industry you want to go into, helping you align your skills and what you actually want into an entirely new industry, and helping you reinvent yourself from a career perspective.
That's great, Nikki. Okay, so I've got a few questions here that I want to run by you, and I thought I would flag that so that it's, yes, I'll be looking to another screen to remember what the questions are. All right, first question is, what are the key things people should think about when deciding on their next career move?
So I think a step that people often miss when they're thinking about a career move is you and what you want. And I know that probably sounds silly because it's your career move, but I think people fall into the trap of they've been on this train for so long, doing this job in this industry, is that the train tracks are set and I'm just going to stay on this train. So I think when it's about a career move, I think a really good place to start is your values. So what is it that you actually value in your job? And this might change. So it's definitely worth checking back in with, if the industry or the job that you're currently in, you've been in, for the last 10, 15 years, your values and what you value may change. So things like, one of my values in my work is autonomy. I like to have autonomy over what I do and how I do it. So that would
Micromanagers not allowed.
Right. So I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I would be misaligned if I chose an industry or a role where there was a huge amount of governance or structure around what I was doing and how I had to do it. That would be misaligned for me. And I think, if you're going to do a career change, there's a great opportunity in here. Why not align your next step with what actually works for you? So things like values like autonomy, security is a big one. So some people in their 30s might have chosen a role or a career because they needed financial security. They had young kids, they had a mortgage. But if you're switching careers in your early 50s, maybe your kids are grown up and you either don't have a mortgage or it's a small mortgage. So that financial security isn't a primary value for you. So that might open you up to the opportunity of contract work or short-term work or hybrid work. It opens up knowing what your values are and lets you see what opportunities are out there. Some people really need work that has purpose, or creativity. They want to be able to be creative in the role. So I think that's the first step, is knowing what you value in your work. I think the second step in when you're ready for a career change is, what are your lifestyle needs? So do you have caring responsibilities? Do you need flexibility around the timings of your work or location of your work? Do you want to work in a hybrid environment? Or some people hate working remotely. Do you just want to work from the office, or vice versa? Things like location. So, some people have had to drive a long way to work, to and from work, the commute, for years and years and years. So now maybe you want a shorter commute, or you want the hybrid work. So thinking about your lifestyle and what's important to you. I think it's also worth, before you even start looking, knowing what your non-negotiables are. So that could be pay. Maybe you need a very specific pay grade. It could be, like I said before, the commute. It could be flexibility. It could be something like, I had a client who said, I have to have a car park. She was down in Sydney. She was like, I just cannot do the train anymore. Whatever role I do has to come with a car park so I can drive to work. Like, that was a big thing for her. So know what your non-negotiables are, and also keep in mind that they can be used to negotiate pay. So, if you've been offered a role that isn't quite where you want it to be pay-wise, can you negotiate on some of those other things that are valuable to you? Can you negotiate to work flexibly a couple of days a week? Can you negotiate not to travel as part of work, or to not be on call on the weekends, or whatever it is for you? Are there trade-offs in there? And I think probably just the last thing to consider when looking at a career transition is your transferable skills. So getting really clear on what are your base skills. So take the context out, take the industry out. What are your core transferable skills? Because I think knowing that opens up a wide range of industries and roles to you when you really, and you can just write it on a post-it note. Post-it notes are great because they're only little. If you had to boil down your transferable skills, what are they? So I think that's a really good starting place for people that are considering a career change.
Thanks, Nikki. They are all great points. Interesting, your last point about transferable skills, because I think that for a lot of people who are looking for a complete industry change, they don't necessarily know. They might have their values and their dreams, but it's like you've got these blinkers on and you don't know that, you can have 20/20 vision about what's possible for you. And you would know this more than many people, because obviously your emergency services, we deal with a lot of people from police and defence background, and that's all they've known. And they know that they don't want to do that anymore, or maybe they've been medically retired, or for whatever reason they need an industry change. They might say, well, yeah, great, Nikki, it's great to focus on my values, but what else could I do? Do you, what advice do you have in that situation?
So one of the things I love about the work that I do is when I do a resume for somebody, they look at it and they're like, is that me on paper? I'm like, yeah, it is. And it opens their mind to what might be possible. There's a really quick and easy exercise to find your transferable skills, and you just grab a piece of paper, or you can do it digitally, divide it down the middle. On the left-hand side, write the tasks that you do. So they're industry specific. What are the tasks that I do on a day-to-day basis, or what am I responsible for? And then on the right-hand page, you write the skill that is required to do that thing. And it's the skills that you focus on to find your transferable skills. That's what's transferable in you. It's not necessarily the context, it's the underlying skill used to perform that role. And that's what you then, so knowing that can then help you decide what direction you're going in. I guess a word of caution there is, just because you have a skill set doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow that skill set. So, I work with a lot of police. Obviously, we have a skill set in investigations. Just because you have that skill set and you might be good at it doesn't mean, if that doesn't align with your values and what you want and the lifestyle that you're aiming for, you don't have to do that, because that's a primary skill set. There are a whole heap of other underlying transferable skills, and that's why I think that activity is really good to do. And to think about, where could this take me? And to answer your point about people that go, well, I don't know what to do or where to go, I always recommend to people to jump onto job websites and put a keyword in. So once you've got a transferable skill, just pop that keyword in. It might be investigations, might be decision making, it might be people management, whatever it is, pop that in and see what comes back. Okay. And a lot of people often find this surprising, and do the gut check. When you read the position description, you'll know, like, not whether you're qualified to do it or whether you could do it, but do I actually?
Yeah. Does it make you go, ooh?
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
But, gosh, that'd be a grind. So just spend some time playing on job sites, and you will absolutely walk away with an idea of, oh, I never thought about being a rail inspector, or I never thought about being, a training consultant, and that'll stimulate some more ideas for you as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks, Nikki. So what are some common mistakes that people make when they're choosing the next direction?
Common mistakes in preparing for a role would be having a generic resume.
Okay.
So I'm pretty passionate about this one. Don't have a generic resume. So 20 years ago, you could absolutely have a generic resume. And a resume was, these are all the roles that I've had, and these are all the things that I've ever done in those roles. And it was everything. And it was then up to the employer to sort through that and see what was relevant. But recruitment has changed a lot, and it's evolved a lot. So you need to tailor your resume to the industry or the role that you're applying for. So once somebody finds a direction they want to head in, I would suggest doing a base resume targeting that industry. And then when you get a specific role description, tweak it even more to better align with that role description. So what that might mean for some people is, if you're not quite sure what direction you're going to take, you might have to create a few base resumes. So if you're thinking about maybe going into a compliance role, but also then maybe going into a sales role, well, they're two different base resumes because they're two very different skill sets. So the biggest mistake I see people making is generic resumes. So tailor.
That makes sense, but it's one of those things that when you do it for yourself, you go, oh, yeah, but it's so true. We've recently been recruiting for expanding our team, and it's interesting. You can tell the people that have put some effort into their application and other people who have just sent it without really thinking too much about it. And that's understandable, but it also tells you something about that applicant, and their care level. And so, yeah, it really is important. Absolutely. So next question for you. So once someone has chosen the direction that they want to take their next career move, what should they do to position themselves for that career change?
So I think LinkedIn is a big one here. So you want to tweak your LinkedIn profile to align with the direction that you're headed in. Okay. So that doesn't mean a complete rewrite. And obviously LinkedIn has your work history. We're not changing that, but we might be fleshing out some of the skills that are needed for the direction that you're headed in. So tweaking your profile, making sure all of your skill set and qualifications are in there that align with the industry and the role that you're moving forward to. So tidying that up, getting that base resume done. So, it's just, when I say base resume, it's that broad scope resume, and then you can just tweak it down. So making sure that is going in there. And then, of course, this is where you come in as well, is qualifications. So I think it's a really good idea for people, once they know what direction they're headed in, is to do a skill gap analysis. So what skills do I need for this new direction that I'm heading in? Are there any gaps there? If you're still in your current role, I always say to people, consider what your current employer can do for you. Is there any training you can do? Is there a project you can work on to get that experience and to fill that gap? And qualifications. So do I have, because a lot of people, as you know, converted, have the experience, but they don't necessarily have the qualification to validate that experience that they have. So when you're doing the skill gap analysis, also consider qualifications, because that really does help validate the experience. So in your resume, you're putting down your experience and your skills, but that's just you're saying that. That's your version that you have those skills and experience. If you can validate it via qualifications, I think that's always a good thing to do. So when you're considering that career change, skill gap analysis, qualifications, tidying up your LinkedIn profile, and then also getting that broad base resume targeting the industry that you're moving into.
Thanks, Nikki. So I think you've probably already answered my next question, which was going to be what's the best way for career changers to translate their past experience into language that new employers can understand. So yeah, so gap training analysis and also qualifications through recognition of prior learning are two great ways. A lot of the clients that we deal with are people who haven't necessarily gone the traditional route through education. So they might have left school, maybe they went into the military, maybe they went into police, or maybe they went into business and worked their way up and eventually, you know, find themselves in a managerial position. And then at a certain point, if you don't have those qualifications, you hit that glass ceiling, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's very frustrating when you know that you're the most qualified person in the room, but you don't have the qualifications to back that up. It's such a shame to see people miss out on opportunities when they just need that ticket to ride. And another thing that we find is that it's that transactional element to it. It's like, okay, needed the diploma, got the diploma, now I can get the job. But it's also the feeding into the self-belief. You know, I think probably unless we're you know, psychopaths, we're not always good at self-validation, are we? Yeah. So to see down on paper, wow, okay, well, I knew that I could do that, but you know, according to the you know, national standards, I am at an advanced diploma level or a graduate diploma level, which is above a bachelor's degree, or maybe at a Cert 4 level if you're earlier in your career. We had one girl working in work health and safety, and the joy that it brought her to achieve a Cert 4, she said that she was the first person ever in her family to achieve tertiary qualifications. And it just gave her such a boost. Yeah,
I love that. I get goosebumps when you say that, the validation that it gives people. And I think a well-written resume and qualifications help anyone fight imposter syndrome as well.
Yes.
I think it also helps with interview preparation, because people often say, oh, I can't see myself, I'm terrible at it. But what I say to them is, it is just an evidence-based conversation. It's you're using evidence-based statements of your experience and your skills and your qualifications. So I think that you know, creating that evidence is very helpful for people. And going back to your earlier point about the language part of it, that can be a big point. You know, translating previous experience to a new industry is how we language that in a resume. So, you know, by way of example, you know, I helped a first responder recently who was an investigator move into a building inspector role.
Okay.
And he was like, I don't know anything about buildings. And I was like, yeah, that's okay though, because let's strip it down to the core function. You, as a building inspector, you are looking at the legislation, the governance, the policy, the standards that say this piece of timber needs to be no more than 31 mil, or, you know, whatever it is. And you are checking that. You are doing the governance piece. So breaking down those transferable skills, but being mindful in his resume to not be too heavy on the context of policing, really drilling down to those core skills of governance, being able to read and apply legislation, being able to communicate with people, like conflict management was a big part of that as well, going onto building sites and having to talk to people and say, hey, you're not actually compliant, and negotiating that. So sort of toning down the context, the policing context in the resume, and really focusing on the core skills that would be used in that role. And I think that's important for people transitioning careers, is absolutely talk about your experience, but focus on the skill, not the context.
That's great advice, because actually the so-called soft skills that I've also seen referred to as power skills, which I really like, are those interpersonal skills, the ability to lead, to be adaptable, to, you know, all those things that we pretty much would do in every career are really at the forefront, aren't they? I think in the past there probably used to be a bit more of an emphasis on technical skills. But yeah, I definitely see that soft/power skills are more and more important and in demand. And I just want to ask you a little side question about that. How do you think AI has influenced the employment landscape?
Yeah. So I probably have a slightly different view to other career coaches and resume writers. I love AI. Like I thought for a while there, I was in a relationship with ChatGPT. Like I absolutely love it. But there is a caveat with that. It needs to be used in a knowledgeable way. So I think, to answer your question, how it's changed the work landscape, people are definitely using it to write their resumes or their job application documents. But I actually think it's lowered the quality of the output, because employers, recruiters, panels are getting smashed with all these AI written applications. But most of them are poor quality. When you're a subject matter expert on that panel and you're reading that resume, you're like, this actually doesn't make too much sense. So I think there's a great opportunity for people here to stand above everyone else. Absolutely use AI, but use it as your writing assistant or your executive assistant. You are still the powerhouse behind it. Use it to help you reword things. Use it to do job analysis. By all means, upload the position description that you're applying for and get AI to analyze it. Give you a list of keywords that you might want to use, help you with your languaging, but you are still the author of that document. You use it as a tool. Whereas I think most people are using it as I just hit send and then I copy what it gives me and I submit that. And I think that's actually lowering the broad base of job applications. So I think there's an opportunity for people here, mindful people, clever people, strategic people, which are the people that are listening to this, to step above that.
Yeah, use it as a tool, not a replacement. I always think about, and this is never more true than now in the age of AI, the quote from George Bernard Shaw, which is, the illusion of communication is that it has taken place. And, you know, even if we're having, isn't that so good? Even if you're having a face-to-face conversation with someone, you might have your meaning that you intend to relay, but you don't know for sure that that's what's landed with the other person. And so then you're converting that into the written word without, you know, all of the other aspects of communication that you get when it's face to face. And then you're running it through a machine. And what I find often is there's a lot of words, but it's completely devoid of any meaning. And I just think, what is the point in me reading this? What are you trying to say? And
a lot of panels will take that view. What am I reading? Why am I reading this? Actually, I'm not going to read it. And the other part on that is, even if somebody does get a cracking application out of ChatGPT, they still need to back it up an interview. ChatGPT can't do your interview for you. So they're going to fall down there. And a lot of people then go, well, I actually don't even know what was in my application because I didn't write it. So yeah, it is a valuable tool, but you've hit the nail on the head. It has to have meaning. It has to have meaning for the reader.
I think it comes back to what you were talking about earlier, Nikki, about starting the process with, what are my values? What are my priorities? What are my skills? Where do I want to go? this is what I'm trying to achieve in, your first impression is your resume and your covering letter. And so what am I trying to achieve in that, rather than getting bamboozled by fancy wordy ways of saying nothing, to just focus on where am I going? What do I want to relay? I think that's really important to remember.
What value can I bring, and how do I convey that in the written word so it has meaning for the reader?
All right, I've got a slightly different question for you now. So for people who aren't quite ready for a career change yet, what can they start doing now to set themselves up for success in the future?
So I have this concept called a brag book that I really encourage people to do. So this is where you keep a log, you regularly update it. You keep a log of your work experience, the skills that you used, and the results that you achieved. So I like to do this in an Excel spreadsheet. And like for me, I have a little calendar reminder pop up at the end of each month. I go back through my calendar. What have I been working on? I go through all my sent emails. What have I been working on? And I just put a little note in there of what I've been working on. And then I have the skills that I used in that, and any results that I've achieved. So whether that's a tangible result, whether it's a stat, whatever it is, put it in there. And this just builds up over time. And that can be used to help you. If you're not quite ready for a career change yet, you can use that in a couple of different ways. So when you are thinking about, what direction do I want to take, you can look over that brag book and look at all the skills that you've used. They're your core skills regardless of the context. It can also help you with your resume writing. Often in a resume or a job application document, they want an example of something that you've done. And when you're sitting there trying to, looking at that blank cursor, you're like, I know I've done so much, I can't think of any. One of the reasons I like to do it in an Excel spreadsheet is you can control find. So if you're looking for an example of your decision making or communication skills or whatever it is, you can search by word for that, because after a while there'll be quite a lot of data in that. And then of course you've got the result, because that's really important in both your resume and your interview to articulate the outcome or the result. So you don't have to then be trying to go back through file servers and emails. And I remember somebody said something nice about it, but I can't remember. And it's all just documented there. So I think that's an excellent strategy and tool for anyone, even really for those that are ready for a career change and you do make the move, start that document. I think that's a really useful tool for anyone in a career to have.
That is great advice. And can I say that you are what our assessors would call an A+ applicant. When they have someone that's really organized like that, they love it.
Yeah, and it again, getting back to that concept of future you, you're saving future you so many headaches just by popping 10 minutes aside at the end of every month. You've got this catalog of everything that then when you actually sit down, you're going to be thanking past you, because you've just got all this evidence in front of you. And it's also really great if you're having a moment of imposter syndrome, or you're just having a bad day, or you've got some bad feedback or whatever, open up your brag book and just reassure yourself that you've got the goods and you've got the skills and you're doing good stuff.
Thanks, Nikki. So one final question for you, if I may. For those people who are ready for a change, so maybe they're getting to the end of the year, they, wrapping up their year, getting through, Christmas and a bit of time off, and they're really ready for a career change in 2026. What mindset shifts are helpful when moving into a completely new industry?
I think the biggest mindset shift, if you're totally changing lanes, is what we spoke about earlier about focusing on those core transferable skills. So knowing what yours are and knowing that you bring the goods. Because as a career transition coach, I see a lot of people get the wobbles where, I'm ready to pull the pin, I'm ready to move. And then we start doing the resume or we get to interview stage and the imposter syndrome creeps in and they get the wobbles about, am I doing the right thing? Have I actually got the goods to bring? Knowing the core skills that you have, that's why they're called transferable, because you can transfer them from one context to another. And that's what that's what employers are looking for. And you sort of touched on this earlier when you were talking about technical skills versus soft or power skills. I love that phrase, power skills.
It's great, isn't it?
It is. And a lot of those transferable skills are those power skills. And that's that's actually what employers want, because what, the shift I've seen in recruitment is they've come around to the idea that, well, I can teach you the technical skills. We have a particular software we use. I can teach you that. It's really hard to teach those people skills, those power skills. So knowing that boiling them down, knowing that you have them, I think that's a really powerful mindset shift when you're trying to switch lanes.
Thanks, Nikki. That's such great advice. So I'm looping back to the start of our conversation, and the third point was preparing now so future you isn't scrambling. I love that. So, it's late November if you're watching this shortly after posting it. Christmas is coming, just like winter. It's great to have everything closed off so that you can enjoy some time off and feel that you've got all of your ducks in a row for the start of the year. So something that we offer at Churchill always is a free appraisal, a free RPL appraisal. So you can have a look at, send us a bit of base evidence, and we can give you an indication of what qualifications you might be eligible for. And then you choose whichever ones you want to enroll with. And until we close on the 19th of December, we're also offering a free fast track and priority post, which is valued at $350. So it's a good time to get qualified, get everything closed off before Christmas. And Nikki, I know that you've got a number of services that you can offer to help as well. So I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the one that your clients would be primarily interested in is the resume writing service. So that's where I can help you find those transferable skills and align them with the role or the industry that you're applying for, so that we're using the right language, we're positioning you well, regardless of the context of your experience, and we're really showing the reader the value that you bring, the skills that you bring, and beautifully aligning you to the role that you're applying for. And then, of course, there's interview coaching as well. So I tend to find people are either really good at the writing stuff, but then they need help with the interview coaching, or vice versa. So I'm able to help in either of those categories for people.
That is great, Nikki. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know that our people and whoever's watching this, maybe you've found it on Vimeo or YouTube or maybe our website. I'll put links to our appraisal and to Nikki's services below this website or whichever platform I'm on, so that you can find it. And Nikki, I'm wishing you and everybody watching this a great end to the year, and a great start to whatever your career holds for the future, which it might be change, it might be preparing for change, or it might be staying where you are because you're really happy there. But I think that either way, it's important to always check in with, what are my values, what are my priorities, where do I want to go, and making sure that you're recording those transferable skills, just like very prepared A+ Nikki.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Leonie. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Nikki.